Dinner time, Ezekiel 39. And you, son of man, prophesy against Gog, and you shall say, Thus said the Master Jehovah, See, I am against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, and shall turn you around and lead you on, and bring you up from the uttermost parts of the north, and bring you against the mountains of Israel. And shall strike the bow out of your left hand, and make the arrows fall from your right hand. On the mountains of Israel you shall fall, you and all your bands, and the peoples who are with you, to the birds of prey of every sort, and to the beasts of the field I shall give you for food. On the face of the field you shall fall, for I have spoken, declares the Master Jehovah. And I shall send fire upon Magog, and on those who live undisturbed in the coastlands, and they shall know that I am Jehovah, and I shall make my set-apart name known in the midst of my people Israel, and not let my set-apart name be profaned any more. And the nations shall know that I am Jehovah, the set-apart one in Israel. See, it shall come, and it shall be done, declares the Master Jehovah. This is the day of which I have spoken, and those who inhabit the cities of Israel shall go out and set on fire and burn the weapons, both the shields and armor, the bows and arrows, the clubs and spears, and they shall make fires with them for 7 years. And take no wood from the field, nor cut down any from the forest. For with the weapons they make fire, and they shall plunder those who plundered them, and loot those who looted them, declares the Master Jehovah. And it shall be on that day that I give Gog a place for a burial site there in Israel, the valley of those passing by east of the sea, and stopping those passing by, because there they shall bury Gog and all his crowd, and shall call it the valley of Haman Gog. And the house of Israel shall bury them for 7 new moons, in order to cleanse the land. And all the people of the land shall bury them, and it shall be for a name to them on the day that I am esteemed, declares the Master Jehovah. And they shall separate men who continually pass through the land, burying those who were passing through, those left on the surface of the ground, in order to cleanse it. At the end of 7 new moons they shall search, and those passing through shall pass through the land, and when anyone sees a man's bones, he shall set up a sign beside it, till the buriers have buried it in the valley of Haman Gog. And also a city named Hamonah shall be there, so they shall cleanse the land. And you, son of man, thus said the Master Jehovah, speak to every sort of bird and to every beast of the field, assemble yourselves and come, gather from all around to my slaughterings, which I am slaughtering for you. A great slaughtering on the mountains of Israel, and you shall eat flesh and drink blood. Eat the flesh of the mighty, drink the blood of the princes of the earth, of rams and lambs, of goats and bulls, all of them fatling of Bashan. And you shall eat fat till you are filled, and drink blood till you are drunk, at my slaughtering which I am slaughtering for you. And you shall be satisfied at my table with horses and riders, with mighty men and with all the men of battle, declares the Master Jehovah. And I shall set my esteem among the nations, and all nations shall see my judgment which I have executed, and my hand which I have laid on them. And the house of Israel shall know that I am Jehovah their Elohim from that day onward. And the nations shall know that the house of Israel went into exile for their crookedness, because they have trespassed against me, so that I hid my face from them, and I gave them into the hand of their adversaries, and they all fell by the sword. According to their uncleanness and according to their transgressions, I have dealt with them and hidden my face from them. Therefore, thus said the Master Jehovah, now I am going to bring back the captives of Jacob, and I shall have compassion on all the house of Israel, and shall be jealous for my set-apart name. And they shall have borne their shame in all their trespass they committed against me, when they dwell safely in their own land, with none to make them afraid. When I have brought them back from the peoples and gathered them out of the lands of their enemies, and I shall be set apart in them before the eyes of many nations. And they shall know that I am Jehovah their Elohim, who sent them into exile among the nations, and then gathered them back to their own land, and left none of them behind. And no longer do I hide my face from them, for I shall have poured out my spirit on the house of Israel, declares the Master Jehovah. In the 25th year of our exile, at Rosh Hashanah, on the 10th of the new moon, in the 14th year after the city was stricken, on that same day the hand of Jehovah came upon me, and he brought me there. In visions of Elohim, he brought me into the land of Israel, and set me on a very high mountain, and upon it toward the south was the structure of a city. So he brought me there, and look, a man whose appearance was like the appearance of bronze, and a line of flax, and a measuring rod in his hand, and he stood in the gateway. And the man said to me, Son of man, see with your eyes and hear with your ears, and set your heart on all that I am showing you. For you were brought here in order to show them to you. Declare to the house of Israel all that you are seeing. And look, a wall all around the outside of the house, and in the man's hand a measuring rod 6 cubits long, each being a cubit and a handbreadth. And he measured the width of the wall structure 1 rod, and the height 1 rod. Then he came to the gate facing east, and he went up its stairs and measured the threshold of the gate 1 rod wide, and the other threshold 1 rod wide. And the little room 1 rod long, and 1 rod wide, and between the little rooms a space of 5 cubits. And the threshold of the gate inwards from the porch of the gate was 1 rod. Then he measured the porch of the inside gate 1 rod. And he measured the porch of the gate 8 cubits, and its post 2 cubits, and the porch of the gate was on the inside. And the little rooms of the east gate, 3 on one side and 3 on the other, all 3 of the same size, and posts were of the same size on this side and that side. And he measured the width of the entrance of the gate, 10 cubits, and the length of the gate, 13 cubits, and the border in front of the little rooms, 1 cubit on this side and 1 cubit on that side. And the gate room was 6 cubits on this side and 6 cubits on that side. And he measured the gate from the roof of one little room to the roof of the other. The width was 25 cubits, door to door. And he measured the posts 60 cubits high, even to the post of the courtyard all around the gate. And from the front of the entrance gate to the front of the porch of the inner gate was 50 cubits. And there were narrowed window frames in the little rooms, and to their posts at the inside of the gate all around, and for the porches too. And there were windows all around on the inside, and on each post were palm trees. And he brought me into the outer courtyard, and look, rooms, and a pavement made all around the courtyard, 30 rooms on the pavement. And the pavement was by the side of the gates, equal to the length of the gates, the lower pavement. And he measured the width from the front of the lower gate to the front of the inner courtyard on the outside, 100 cubits toward the east and the north. And the gate of the outer courtyard facing north, he measured its lengths and its widths. And its little rooms, 3 on this side and 3 on that side, its post and its porches, had the same measurements as the first gate. Its length was 50 cubits and its width 25 cubits. And its windows and its porches and its palm trees had the same measurements as the gate facing east. And they went up to it by 7 steps, and its porch was in front of it. And the gate of the inner courtyard was opposite the northern gate, and at the eastern gate, and he measured from gate to gate 100 cubits. And he took me toward the south, and look, a gate toward the south. And he measured its post and porches according to these measurements. And windows were in it, and in its porches all around, like those windows, its length was 50 cubits, and its width 25 cubits. The 7 steps led up to it, and its porch was in front of them, and it had palm trees on its post, 1 on this side and 1 on that side. And the inner courtyard had a gate toward the south, and he measured from the gate to gate toward the south 100 cubits. And he brought me to the inner courtyard through the south gate, and he measured the southern gate according to these measurements. And its little rooms and its posts and its porches were according to these measurements. And windows were in it, and in its porches all around, 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. And there were porches all around, 25 cubits long and 5 cubits wide. And its porches were toward the outer courtyard. The palm trees were on its post, and 8 steps led up to it. And he brought me into the inner courtyard toward the east, and he measured the gate according to these measurements. And its little rooms and its post and its porches were according to these measurements. And windows were in it, and in its porches all around, 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. And its porches were toward the outer courtyard, and palm trees were on its posts, on this side and on that side, and 8 steps led up to it. And he brought me to the north gate, and he measured it according to these measurements. Its little rooms, its post, and its porches, and it had windows all around. Its length was 50 cubits, and its width 25 cubits. And its posts were toward the outer courtyard. And palm trees were on its post, and on this side and on that side. The 8 steps led up to it. And there was a room with its entrance by the posts of the gate, where they washed the ascending offering. And in the porch of the gate were 2 tables on this side and 2 tables on that side, on which to slay the ascending offerings, and the sin offering, and the guilt offering. And on the outer side, as one went up to the entrance of the north gate, were 2 tables, and on the other side of the porch of the gate were 2 tables. 4 tables were on this side, and 4 tables on that side. By the side of the gate 8 tables, on which they slew. And there were 4 tables of hewn stone for the ascending offering, 1 cubit and a half long, 1 cubit and a half wide, and 1 cubit high. On these they placed the instrument which they slew, the ascending offering and the slaughterings. And the double hooks, a handbreadth wide, were fastened all around. And on the table was the flesh of the offerings. And on the outside of the inner gate were the rooms for the singers in the inner courtyard, one at the side of the north gate and facing south, and the other on the side of the south gate facing north. And he said to me, "This room facing south is for the priests who guard the duty of the house. And the room facing north is for the priests who guard the duty of the slaughter place. They are the sons of Zadok, from the sons of Levi, who come near Jehovah to serve him." And he measured the courtyard, 100 cubits long and 100 cubits wide, a square. And the slaughter place was in front of the house. And he brought me to the porch of the house, and measured the doorposts of the porch, 5 cubits on this side and 5 cubits on that side, and the width of the gate was 3 cubits, and on this side, and 3 cubits on that side. The length of the porch was 20 cubits, and the width 11 cubits, and by the steps which led up to it, there were columns by the doorposts, one on this side and one on that side. And he brought me into the Hekal, and he measured the doorpost, 6 cubits wide on one side and 6 cubits wide on the other side, the width of the tent. And the entrance was 10 cubits wide, and the side walls of the entrance were 5 cubits on this side and 5 cubits on the other side. And he measured its length 40 cubits and 20 cubits wide. And he went inside and measured the doorpost 2 cubits, and the entrance 6 cubits high, and the width of the entrance 7 cubits. And he measured the length 20 cubits and the width 20 cubits to the front of the Hekal. And he said to me, "This is the most set apart place." And he measured the wall of the house 6 cubits, and the width of each side room all around the house was 4 cubits on every side. And the side rooms were on 3 levels, one above the other, 30 rooms on each level, and they rested on ledges, which were for the side rooms all around, to be supported, but not fastened to the wall of the house. And there was a broadening and a winding upwards for the side rooms, for the winding around the house went up like steps. And the width of the structure increased as one went up from the lowest level to the highest by the way of the middle one. And I saw the height all around the house, the foundation of the side rooms, a rod's length of 6 cubits. The thickness of the outer wall of the side rooms was 5 cubits, and that which was left between the side rooms of the house. And the rooms was a width of 20 cubits all around the house on every side. And the door of the side room was toward the open space, one door toward the north and another toward the south. And the width of the place of the open space was 5 cubits all around, and the building that was in front of the separate place at the side toward the west was 70 cubits wide, and the wall of the building was 5 cubits thick, all around, and its length 90 cubits. Then he measured the house, 100 cubits long, and the separate place with the building and its walls were 100 cubits long. And the width of the front of the house and of the separate place eastward was 100 cubits. And he measured the length of the building to the front of the separate place, behind it, and its galleries on the one side and on the other side, 100 cubits, as well as the inner Hekal and the porches of the courtyard, the doorpost and the narrowed window frames and the galleries all around. Their 3 levels opposite the threshold were paneled with wood from the ground to the windows, and the windows were covered. From the space above the door, even to the inner house, as well as outside and on every wall all around, inside and outside by measure. And it was made with cherubim and palm trees, and a palm tree between cherub and cherub, and a cherub had 2 faces, so that the face of a man was toward a palm tree on one side, and the face of a young lion toward a palm tree on the other side, made on all the house all around. From the floor to the separate space above the door, and on the wall of the Hekal, cherubim and palm trees were carved. The doorpost of the Hekal were square, and the front of the set-apart place, the appearance of one was like the appearance of the other. The slaughter place was of wood, 3 cubits high, and its length 2 cubits, and its corners, and its length, and its sides were of wood. And he said to me, "This is the table that is before Jehovah." And the Hekal and the set-apart place had 2 doors. And each of the doors had 2 panels, 2 folding panels, 2 panels for one door and 2 panels for the other door. And cherubim and palm trees were carved on the doors of the Hekal, like those carved on the walls. And thick wood was on the front of the porch outside. And narrowed window frames and palm trees were on one side and on the other, on the sides of the porch and on the side rooms of the house, and thick wood. And he brought me out into the outer courtyard, the way toward the north, and he brought me into the room which was opposite the separate place, and which was opposite the building to the north. Along the length, which was 100 cubits, was the north door. The width was 5 cubits, opposite the inner courtyard of 20 cubits, and opposite the pavement of the outer courtyard, gallery against gallery in 3 levels. And before the rooms toward the inside was a walk 10 cubits wide, a way of 1 cubit, and their doors were to the north. And the upper rooms were shorter, because the galleries took away space from them than from the lower and middle levels of the building. For they were in 3 levels and had no columns like the columns of the courtyards. So the upper level was set back more than the lower and middle levels from the ground up. As for the outer walls by the side of the rooms, toward the outer courtyard facing the rooms, its length was 50 cubits. For the length of the rooms toward the outer courtyard was 50 cubits, and that facing the Hekal was 100 cubits. And below these rooms was the entrance on the east side, as one enters them from the outer courtyard. In the thickness of the wall of the courtyard toward the east, opposite the separate place and opposite the building, were rooms. And the way in front of them was like the appearance of the rooms, which were toward the north, as long as wide as the others, and all their exits and entrances were according to plan. And according to the doors of the rooms that were toward the south, there was a door in front of the way in front of the wall toward the east, as one enters them. And he said to me, the north rooms and the south rooms, which are opposite the separate place, are the set-apart rooms where the priests who approach Jehovah eat the most set-apart offerings. There they place the most set-apart items, and the grain offering, and the sin offering, and the guilt offering, for the place is set apart. When the priests enter, they are not to go out of the set-apart room into the outer courtyard, but leave their garments in which they attend there. For they are set apart, and shall put on their garments, and shall draw near to that which is for the people. And when he had ended measuring the inner house, he brought me out through the gate that faces east, and measured it all around. He measured the east side with the measuring rod, 500 rods by the measuring rod all around. He measured the north side, 500 rods by the measuring rod all around. He measured the south side, 500 rods by the measuring rod. He turned around to the west side and measured 500 rods by the measuring rod. On the 4 sides he measured it. It had a wall all around, 500 cubits long and 500 wide, to separate the set-apart places from the common. And he led me to the gate facing east, and see, the esteem of Elohim of Yisrael came from the way of the east. And his voice was like the sound of many waters, and the earth shone from his esteem. And it was like the appearance of the vision which I saw, like the vision which I saw when he came to destroy the city. And the visions were like the vision which I saw by the river Kebar, and I fell on my face. And the esteem of Jehovah came into the house by way of the gate facing east. And the Spirit took me up and brought me into the inner courtyard, and see, the esteem of Jehovah filled the house. And I heard someone speaking to me from the house while a man stood beside me. And he said to me, Son of man, this is the place of my throne, and the place of the soles of my feet, when I dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever, and the house of Israel shall no longer defile my set-apart name, they nor their sovereigns, by their whorings, and by the corpses of their sovereigns on their high places. When they placed their threshold by my threshold, and their doorpost by my doorpost, with a wall between them and me, they defiled my set-apart name by the abominations which they have done. So I consumed them in my displeasure. Now let them put their whoring and the corpses of their sovereigns far away from me, and I shall dwell in their midst forever. See, Son of man, explain the house to the house of Israel, and when they are ashamed of their crookedness, they shall measure the measurements. And since they shall be ashamed of all that they did, make known to them the design of the house and its structures, and its exits and its entrances, its entire design and all its laws, and all its forms, and all its Torah, and write it down before their eyes, so that they observe its entire design and all its laws, and shall do them. This is the Torah of the house, upon the mountain top. All the boundary of it, all around, is most set apart. See, this is the Torah of the house. And these are the measurements of the slaughter place in cubits, the cubit being 1 cubit and a handbreadth, and the base 1 cubit high and 1 cubit wide, with a rim all around its edge of 1 span. And this is the upper part of the slaughter place.